The morning sun cast long shadows across the stone courtyard of the tribunal grounds. Kung Daeho walked slowly through the massive gates, his human shoes making soft sounds on the ancient stones. The air smelled of metal and something sharp. That always made his nose twitch on this alien world. Daeho had been living on Kethmer for 2 years now. As a human diplomat, his job was simple: keep the peace between humans and the Dek Mori. It was not always easy work. The Dek Mori were proud warriors who stood nearly 8 feet tall. Their skin looked like green leather, and their eyes glowed yellow in the dark. They had sharp teeth and claws that could cut through steel. But today felt different. Today Daeho was not here for normal diplomatic work. He was here because he had heard whispers in the market, whispers about a trial, whispers about a warrior who had done something terrible. The tribunal grounds were huge. Tall stone pillars reached toward the sky like giant fingers. Between them, hundreds of the Ekmori had gathered to watch the trial. Their deep voices rumbled, like thunder as they talked among themselves. Daeho felt very small as he found a place to stand near the back. "Human," said a voice behind him. Daeho turned to see a young Dek Mori warrior. The alien's yellow eyes looked down at him with curiosity. "Why are you here? This is not your business." "I watched to learn," Daeho replied carefully. He had learned to speak their language well, but he still had to think about each word. "I want to understand your ways." The warrior made a sound that might have been laughter. "Today you will see true justice, small one. You will see what happens to those who bring shame to our people." Before Daeho could ask what he meant, drums began to beat. The sound was deep and slow, like a giant heartbeat. The crowd of Dek Mori fell silent. All eyes turned toward the center of the courtyard. 3 figures walked out from the shadows between the pillars. The first was High Arbiter Quenthal, the most powerful judge among the Dek Mori. He was older than most, with scars covering his arms and face. Each scar told a story of battles won with honor. Behind him walked the guards. Between them, with chains on her wrists, walked the prisoner. She was a female Dek Mori, but she was different from any Daeho had seen before. Where other Dek Mori warriors wore their scars with pride, she held her head high despite her chains. Her green skin was marked with the blue tattoos that showed she was a decorated warrior. But her eyes burned with something Daeho had never seen in a Dek Mori before. They burned with defiance. "Behold, Valara," announced High Arbiter Quenthal. His voice carried across the courtyard like rolling thunder. Once a warrior of honor, now brought low by her own weakness. The crowd made angry sounds. Some hissed. Others growled deep in their throats. Daeho felt the hair on his arms stand up. He'd never felt such anger from so many beings at once. "Tell us your crimes," Quenthal commanded. Valara lifted her head higher. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. "I saved the weak. I chose mercy over glory. I retreated from battle to protect those who could not protect themselves." The crowd exploded with rage. Warriors roared and pounded their fists against their chests. Some shouted words that Daeho did not know, but he could tell they were very bad words. Silence. Quenthal's voice cut through the noise like a blade. The crowd became quiet again. "Yes, you saved the weak. You carried wounded civilians away from the battle. You ran from the enemy when you should have fought to the death." "I ran to save lives," Valara said. 12 children. 8 elders. 6 mothers. All would have died if I had stayed to fight. "Better they had died with honor than lived with shame," shouted someone from the crowd. "Better you had died than bring disgrace to all warriors," yelled another. Daeho felt sick to his stomach. He could not understand this. How could saving lives be wrong? How could protecting the innocent be shameful? High Arbiter Quenthal raised his hand for silence again. "The law is clear. A warrior who retreats from battle, for any reason, brings shame to all Dek Mori. The penalty is death by combat in the great arena." "When?" Valara asked. She did not sound afraid. She sounded tired. 3 days from now, you will face our greatest champion. If the gods favor you, you will die with some honor restored." Double quotes. Quenthal did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. The crowd began to break up. Warriors talked among themselves as they walked away. Daeho heard fragments of their conversations about time, should have been done sooner, disgrace to all warriors. But Daeho could not move. He stood there, watching as the guards led Valara away. She walked with her head high, even with chains on her wrists. As she passed near him, their eyes met for just a moment. In that moment, Daeho saw something that shook him to his core. He saw the same look he had seen in human soldiers who had been forced to make impossible choices. The look of someone who knew they had done the right thing, even if the world called them wrong. Interesting, is it not? The young warrior from before had returned. She still acts proud, even knowing she will die. She saved lives, Daeho said quietly. She ran from battle, the warrior corrected him. Among the Dekmori, there is no greater shame. Death before dishonor, glory before life. And these are our ways. But the children should have learned to die with courage, as all Dekmori must. The warrior turned to leave. Your people are soft, human, do not understand true strength. As the warrior walked away, Daeho remained in the empty courtyard. The sun was higher now, and the shadows had grown shorter. But somehow, the world felt darker than before. That night, back in his small apartment in the human diplomatic compound, Daeho could not sleep. He kept thinking about Valara's eyes. He kept thinking about those 26 lives she had saved. Children, elders, mothers, all alive because one warrior had chosen compassion over conquest. And in 3 days, she would die for it. Daeho got up from his bed and walked to his computer. If Valara was going to die for breaking that Moran law, then maybe he needed to understand that law better. Maybe, just maybe, there was something the High Arbiter had missed as he began to search through the ancient legal texts. Daeho had no idea that his late-night research would change everything. He had no idea that in trying to save one alien warrior, he would put his own life in danger. All he knew was that watching an innocent person die for showing mercy was something he could not accept. The search began. Daeho's eyes burned from staring at the computer screen all night. Empty coffee cups sat around his desk like small towers. Papers covered with notes were scattered everywhere. But finally, after hours of searching through ancient Dekmori laws, he had found something. Kathmani Velthor, he whispered to himself, reading the old text again. The words were in the oldest form of the Ekmori language. It took him time to translate them properly. Honor sharing. The law was very old. So old that most Dekmori had probably forgotten it existed. It said that if someone of equal standing would take responsibility for a warrior's actions, they could share the punishment. Both would face the trial together. Daeho sat back in his chair. Daeho's heart was beating fast. This could work. This could actually work. But first, he needed to talk to his boss. Ambassador Park Ji-woo was not a man who liked surprises. He was tall for a Korean, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He had been dealing with aliens for 20 years, and he knew how dangerous diplomatic mistakes could be. You want to do what? Park asked, when Daeho explained his plan. They were sitting in Park's office, which had thick walls and no windows. It was the most secure room in the human compound. The law is clear, sir, Daeho said. Lisa placed the printed pages on Park's desk. If I invoke honor sharing, I can take responsibility for Valara's actions. We would both face the trial together. Picked up the papers, but did not read them. Instead, he looked at Daeho like he was looking at a crazy person. Do you understand what you are saying? You want to risk your life for one alien warrior? She saved 26 innocent people, Daeho replied. Children, elders, mothers. She chose to protect them instead of seeking glory in battle. How is that wrong? It is wrong because the Vekmori say it is wrong. Park's voice rose. He stood up and walked to the wall where a map of the galaxy hung. Red dots showed human colonies. Blue dots showed the Komori worlds.
Yellow dots showed the Vexter.
Empire, humanity's greatest enemy. Look at this map, Daeho, Park said, pointing at the yellow dots. The Vexter have 10 times more ships than we do. 10 times more worlds. The only reason they have not destroyed every human colony is because the Vekmori fight beside us. Deho looked at the map. He had seen it many times before, but now, it looked different. Now he could see how small and weak humanity really was. We need the Thekmori Park continued. Need their warriors, their ships, their weapons. Without them, every human in the galaxy could die. And you want to risk that alliance for one alien? But if we let innocent people die, what are we fighting to protect? Deho asked. Park turned around. His face was tired. We are fighting too. Survive, Deho. Sometimes survival means making hard choices. Deho left Park's office feeling defeated, but as he walked through the compound, he saw Lee Subain waiting for him by the medical center. Subain was his closest friend on Kethmer. She was a doctor who took care of both humans and aliens who got hurt in the compound. You look terrible, Subain said as Deho approached. When was the last time you slept? I found something, Deho said. He told her about the honor-sharing law and his conversation with Ambassador Park. Su Dashbin listened without saying anything. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. You know, Park is right, she finally said. If you do this, it could destroy everything we have worked for here. I know. The conservative Dekmori factions are already looking for reasons too. Break the alliance with us. They think humans are weak if you interfere in their justice system. I know, Deho said again. Subain studied his face. But you are going to do it anyway, are not you? Deho nodded. I have to. I cannot watch her die for doing the right thing. The right thing according to humans, Subain corrected. To the Vekmori, she broke their most sacred law.
Maybe.
Their law is wrong. Subain sighed. Maybe it is. But who are we to judge an entire civilization? That afternoon, Deho walked to the prison where Valara was being held. The building was made of the same dark stone as the tribunal grounds.
Vekmori.
Guards stood at the entrance, their weapons ready. I want to see the prisoner, Deho told the guard captain. The captain looked down at him. Why would a human want to see a dishonored warrior? I am a diplomat. Study your laws and customs. I want to understand her crime, the captain thought. About this. Finally he nodded. You have 10 minutes. The prison cell was small and dark. Valara sat on a stone bench, her hands no longer chained. When she saw Deho, her yellow eyes narrowed with suspicion. Why are you here, human? She asked. I want to help you, Deho said. Valara laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Help me. You are small and weak. Your people know nothing of honor or strength. How could you possibly help a Vekmori warrior? I know about Kithmani, Veltor, Deho said. Valara's laughter stopped. She stared at him with surprise. That law is ancient. No one has invoked it for centuries. I want to invoke it now. I want to share responsibility for your actions. Would die, Valara said simply. The trial is combat to the death. You are human. You would not last 10 seconds against a Thekmori champion. Maybe, Deho said. But at least I would die knowing I tried to do the right thing. Valara stood up and walked closer to the bars of her cell. She looked at Deho for a long time. Why? She asked finally. Why would you risk your life for me? I am nothing to you. You saved innocent lives, Deho replied. You chose mercy over glory. Where I come from, that makes you a hero, not a criminal. Your people are fools if they think mercy is strength. Maybe we are fools, Deho said. But we are fools who believe that protecting the innocent is worth dying for. Valara was quiet again. When she spoke, her voice was softer. You truly believe this? Yes, even knowing you will die, even knowing I will die. Valara turned away from him. Then you are braver than I thought, little human, but also more foolish than I imagined. The next morning, Deho received an urgent message. Ambassador Park wanted to see him immediately. When he arrived at Park's office, he found 2 people waiting. One was Park. The other was Commander Yoon Haejin, a military officer from Earth. Sit down, Deho, Park said. His voice was very serious. Commander Yoon was a woman with short hair and cold eyes. She wore the uniform of Earth's Space Command. When she spoke, her voice was like ice. I have orders from Earth Command, she said. You are to be extracted immediately. A ship is waiting to take you home. I am not leaving, Deho said. This is not a request, Commander Yoon replied. Intelligence reports suggest you are planning to interfere in Dekmori justice. Such actions could be considered treason. Deho stood up. Trying to save an innocent life is treason. Risking the alliance that protects billions of human lives is treason, Commander Yoon said. You will come with me now, or you will be arrested. Deho looked at Park, hoping for support. But the ambassador would not meet his eyes. I am sorry, Deho Park said quietly. The decision has been made. But Deho had made his decision too. While Commander Yoon was talking to Park about extraction procedures, he quietly slipped out of the office. He had 1 day left before Valara's execution. 1 day to do what he knew in his heart was right, even if it made him a traitor to his own people, that evening. As the alien sun set over Kethmer, Deho made his way back to the tribunal grounds. Tomorrow, he would invoke an ancient law and risk everything to save a warrior who had chosen compassion over conquest. He just hoped he would live long enough to make it matter. The morning air was cold when Deho walked into the tribunal grounds. His legs shook with each step, but he forced himself to keep moving. Behind him, he could hear the sound of boots on stone. Commander Yoon and her soldiers were following him, but they could not stop him now. He was already here. High Arbiter Quinthal stood in the center of the courtyard, surrounded by the Council of Elders. These were the oldest and most respected Dekamori warriors. Their scales were gray with age, and their eyes held the wisdom of centuries. Human, Quinthal said when he saw Deho approach. You should not be here. This is not your concern. I invoke Kathmani Velthor, Deho said loudly. His voice echoed off the stone walls. I claim honor sharing with the warrior Valara. The courtyard fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop blowing. Hundreds of the Morii stared at Deho in shock. No one moved. No one spoke. Then the whispers began. A human? Invoking our ancient laws? This is madness. ... The old laws do not apply to aliens. ... Silence. Quenthal's voice boomed across the courtyard. The whispers stopped. He looked down at Deho with his burning yellow eyes. Do you understand what you are asking, small one? I understand, Deho replied. I take responsibility for Valara's actions. Her honor is my honor. Her fate is my fate. One of the council elders stepped forward. His name was Thakvar, and he was the oldest living Thakmor warrior. His voice was like the sound of grinding stone. The law of honor sharing has not been invoked for 300 years, he said, and never by an alien species. But the law exists, Deho said, and it does not say only that Komori can invoke it. The elders looked at each other. They spoke in low voices, using words too old for Deho to understand. While they talked, Commander Yoon pushed through the crowd. Deho, she called out. Stop this madness. Come with me now. I cannot, Deho said without turning around. I have made my choice. Then you are a traitor to humanity, Commander Yoon shouted. Your own people will hunt you down. Her words hit Deho like a physical blow. A traitor. That is what they would call him on Earth. That is what the history books would say. But when he looked at the faces around him, when he thought about Valara sitting in her cell, he knew he could not change his mind. The Council of Elders finished their discussion. Quenthal raised his hand for silence. We have decided, he announced. The ancient law will be honored. But both the human and Valara must face the trial of worthiness together. What does that mean? Deho asked. You will fight our greatest champion in the great arena, Quenthal explained. If you fight with honor and courage, you may live. If you show cowardice or weakness, you both die. Who is your champion? The crowd parted like water. Through the gap walked the largest Thekmori Deho had ever seen. He was nearly 9 feet tall, with muscles like twisted metal cables. Scars covered his body from head to toe, each one telling a story of victory in battle. When he moved, the ground seemed to shake under his feet. I am Keshtar, the giant warrior said. His voice was like an earthquake. I have fought in the great arena for 20 years. I've never been defeated. I have killed 43 warriors in ritual combat. Daeho's throat went dry. This monster was going to kill him. There was no doubt about it. But he had come too far to back down now. When he asked, "Tomorrow at sunrise," Quenthal replied, "You have 1 day to prepare. The guards will take you to the warrior quarters. You may speak with Valara and make whatever peace you need with your gods." As the crowd began to break up, Daeho felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Ambassador Park standing behind him. The older man's face was full of sadness. "Why?" Daeho Park asked quietly. "Why throw your life away like this?" "Someone has to stand up for what is right," Daeho replied, "even if it costs everything." Park shook his head. "Earth Command has already disavowed your actions. Officially, you are no longer a human diplomat. You are on your own." The words hurt, but Daeho had expected them. "I understand." "No, you do not," Park said. "When you die tomorrow, your family will be told you were a traitor. Your name will be erased from all records. It will be as if you never existed." Daeho felt tears in his eyes, but he did not let them fall. "Then at least I will die knowing I tried to do something good." Park walked away without another word. Commander Yoon and her soldiers followed him. Soon, Daeho was alone with the Dekmori guards. They took him to a small room near the arena. It was simple but clean, with a bed, a table, and a window that looked out over the city. On the table was food and water. Next to it was a set of basic armor and weapons. "The female warrior asked to see you," one of the guards said. "Do you wish to speak with her?" Daeho nodded. A few minutes later, they brought Valara to his room. She was no longer in chains, but 2 guards stayed with her. "The crazy human," she said when she saw him. "You actually did it. I said I would." Valara sat down on the floor across from him. "Do you know how to fight?" "A little," Daeho lied. He had taken some basic combat training as a diplomat, but nothing that would help him against a warrior like Keshtar. "A little will not be enough," Valara said. "Keshtar is the strongest fighter our people have ever produced. He moves like lightning and hits like thunder." "Then teach me," Daeho said. Valara looked surprised. "Teach you what? How to die with honor?" "Teach me how to fight like a team," Daeho replied. "Yvek Mori. Always fight alone, seeking individual glory. But humans fight together. We cover each other's weaknesses. We combine our strengths." "That is not how the trial works," Valara said. "Each warrior must prove their own worth." "The law says we must fight with honor and courage," Daeho pointed out. "It does not say we cannot help each other." Valara was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer. "Really believe we can win?" "I believe we can try," Daeho said. "And sometimes trying is enough." They spent the rest of the day planning. Valara taught Daeho basic Dekmori fighting techniques. More importantly, she taught him about Keshtar's fighting style. The champion was strong and fast, but he was also predictable. He had won so many fights the same way that he had become set in his patterns. "He always opens with a charge," Valara explained. "He tries to end fights quickly with overwhelming force." "What if he cannot charge?" Daeho asked. "What do you mean?" "What if the arena itself stops him? What if we use the environment to our advantage?" Valara's eyes widened. That is not how we fight." "It is how humans fight," Daeho said. "We adapt. We improvise. We use whatever we can to survive." As the sun set over Kethmer, Daeho and Valara continued to plan. Outside, news of the strange trial was spreading across the galaxy. Human news channels called Daeho a traitor and a fool. Dekmori broadcasts debated whether aliens should be allowed to invoke their ancient laws. But in the small room, the unlikely allies prepared for a battle that would change both their peoples forever. "Tell me about the children you saved," Daeho said as they took a break from planning. Valara's expression softened. "There was a little girl named Kira. She was only 6 years old. When the enemy attacked, she was too scared to run. I carried her to safety on my back." "What happened to her?" "She lives with her grandmother now. She draws pictures of warriors and gives them to other children." Valara paused. "She draws me sometimes. Not as I am now, but as I was before I was called a coward." "You are not a coward," Deho said firmly. You are the bravest person I have ever met. Tomorrow we will see if bravery is enough, Valara replied. Outside their window, the alien stars came out one by one. In a few hours, the sun would rise, and they would face Keshtar in the great arena. They would probably die. But they would die fighting for something they believed in. And sometimes, that was the only victory. That mattered. The great arena was bigger than Deho had imagined. It was carved from black stone and could hold 50,000 Thekmori. Every seat was full. The crowd's roars echoed off the walls like thunder from an angry sky. Deho stood at one of the arena gates, wearing simple leather armor that felt too big for his human body. In his hands, he held a sword and shield. Both felt heavy and awkward. Beside him, Valara checked her own weapons. She looked calm, but Deho could see her hands shaking slightly. Remember the plan? She said quietly. Do not try to match his. Strength, use speed, use the arena, use everything except honor. What do you mean except honor? Deho asked. I mean fight like a human, not like a Thekmori, Valara replied. Our honor will get us killed today. Across the arena, another gate opened. Keshtar stepped into the sunlight. The crowd exploded with cheers and roars. The champion raised his massive sword above his head, and the noise became even louder. He was terrifying in the daylight. His green scales seemed to glow, and his yellow eyes found Deho across the arena. When he smiled, his sharp teeth looked like knives. At him, Valara said, he thinks this will be easy. He thinks he will crush us in minutes. Maybe he will, Deho said. His mouth was dry with fear. Maybe Valara agreed. But let us make him work for it. High Arbiter Quinthal stood in the royal box above the arena. His voice carried to every corner of the huge space. Citizens of Kethmer, today we witness something that has never happened before. A human has invoked the ancient law of honor sharing, claims responsibility for the actions of the warrior Valara.
All the crowd booed
And hissed at the mention of Valara's name. But when they looked at Deho, some seemed curious rather than angry. If they fight with honor and courage, they may live, Quinthal continued. If they show cowardice or weakness, they die. Let the trial of worthiness begin. The gates opened. Fully, Keshtar walked into the center of the arena like he owned it. His steps were slow and confident. He had done this many times before. Deho and Valara entered from the opposite side. The sand under their feet was hot from the morning sun. In some places it was stained dark red from previous battles. Stay together, Valara whispered. Do not let him separate us. They walked toward the center, but stopped about 20 feet. Away from Keshtar, the champion looked down at them and laughed. A human and a coward, he said. His voice carried across the arena. This will not take long. We will see, Deho replied. He was surprised that his voice sounded steady. Keshtar raised his sword. It was nearly as long as Deho was tall. I will kill the human first, then I will take my time with the female. Typical Thekmori, Deho said loudly. All talk, no action. The crowd gasped. No one spoke to a champion that way.
Ash.
Eyes blazed with anger. You dare insult me, little human? I dare to speak the truth, Deho replied. You are big and strong, but you are also slow and stupid, Keshtar roared with rage. Just as Valara had predicted, he charged forward like a mad bull. His massive feet pounded the sand as he ran straight at Deho. But Deho was not there when Keshtar arrived at the last second. Deho had rolled to the side. Keshtar's sword slammed into the ground where he had been standing. The blade bit deep into the sand. While Keshtar struggled to pull his sword free, Valara attacked from behind. Her sword struck his armor, leaving a long scratch but not doing real damage. Keshtar spun around and swung his sword at her. Valara jumped back, but the blade still caught her arm. Blood ran down her green skin. First blood to me, Keshtar shouted. The crowd cheered, but Deho was already moving. While Keshtar was distracted by Valara, Deho had picked up a handful of sand. Now he threw it directly at the champion's eyes. Keshtar cursed and stumbled backward, trying to clear his vision. It was not an honorable move, but it worked. Human fights like a coward. someone shouted from the crowd. The human fights like a human, Deho shouted back. He and Valara attacked together, while Keshtar was blinded. Their swords struck his armor from different angles. The champion was strong, but he could not defend against two opponents attacking at the same time. Keshtar cleared his eyes and swung wildly with his sword. Deho ducked under the blade and rolled between the champion's legs. Valara attacked from the front, forcing Keshtar to turn toward her. This was not how Vekmori fought. This was not individual combat between warriors seeking personal glory. This was teamwork. This was strategy. This was the human way. For the first time in 20 years, Keshtar looked confused. He was used to enemies who attacked directly, who tried to match his strength with their own strength. He did not know how to fight opponents who used tactics and worked together. "Stand still and fight me properly," he roared. "No," Deho said simply. The battle continued across the arena. Keshtar was still stronger and faster than either of his opponents. But every time he focused on one of them, the other would attack from behind or from the side. They used the arena walls to confuse him, ducking behind pillars and using the steps to gain height advantages. Deho found a piece of broken stone and threw it at Keshtar's head. The champion blocked it with his sword, but that gave Valara an opening to strike at his legs. The crowd was getting restless. This was not the kind of fight they were used to seeing. Some were angry that the human was not fighting with honor, but others seemed fascinated by the strange tactics in the royal box. Deho could see Li Subin watching with her hands over her mouth. Ambassador Park sat beside her, his face pale with worry. Keshtar was bleeding now from several small wounds. None were serious, but they were slowing him down. More importantly, he was getting frustrated. Angry warriors made mistakes. "You fight like insects," Keshtar screamed. "Buzzing around, too weak to face me directly." "Insects can kill giants," Valara replied. "If there are enough of them," Keshtar charged again, this time toward Valara. But instead of dodging, she stood her ground. The last second, she dropped to one knee and held her sword up. Keshtar could not stop his charge. He ran directly onto her blade. The sword pierced his armor and went deep into his chest. Keshtar looked down in shock. His own momentum had killed him. But as he fell, his massive sword came down toward Valara's head. She could not move in time. Deho threw himself forward and knocked Valara out of the way. Keshtar's sword missed her by inches, but the champion's falling body crashed down on top of Deho. Pain exploded through Deho's leg as Keshtar's weight crushed down on him. He could feel bones breaking. He screamed and tried to push the massive body off, but he was not strong enough. Valara rolled away and got to her feet. She was hurt, but alive. Keshtar was not moving. His yellow eyes stared at the sky, seeing nothing. The arena was completely silent. 50,000 Vekmori stared in shock at what they had just witnessed. Their greatest champion was dead. Killed. Not by superior strength or skill, but by teamwork and strategy. Valara limped over to where Deho was trapped under Keshtar's body. With great effort, she managed to roll the dead champion off him. Deho's leg was badly broken. Blood soaked through his armor, but he was alive. "Can you stand?" Valara asked. "I think so," Deho said through gritted teeth. With Valara's help. He struggled to his feet. His broken leg would not support his weight, so he leaned heavily on her. Together, they faced the crowd. Together, they waited to learn their fate. High Arbiter Quenthal stood up in the royal box. His voice echoed across the silent arena. "The champion is dead. The trial is over." He paused, looking down at the unlikely pair. "But what have we witnessed here today? Honor? Or something else entirely?" In the crowd, voices began to rise. Some called for the deaths of both fighters. They had not fought with proper honor. They had used tricks and teamwork instead of individual courage. But other voices defended them. They had faced the greatest champion in Vekmor history and won. They had shown courage, even if it was not the traditional kind. The argument spread through the crowd like fire through dry grass. For the first time in centuries, the Vekmori were divided about what honor truly meant. And in the center of it all, Human and an alien warrior leaned on each other for support, waiting to see if their strange victory would be enough to save their lives. The argument in the arena grew louder with each passing minute. Thousands of the Mori voices rose in anger and confusion. Some demanded death for the fighters who had not followed proper combat rules. Others defended their right to live after. Defeating the great champion, Daiho leaned heavily on Valara, his broken leg sending waves of pain through his body. Blood dripped onto the hot sand beneath them. But he stayed standing, waiting for judgment. High Arbiter Quinthal raised his hand for silence. The crowd noise slowly died down until the arena was quiet again. This trial has raised questions that have no easy answers, Quinthal said. His ancient voice carried to every corner of the arena. Did these fighters show honor? Did they show courage? Or did they mock our sacred traditions? They showed cowardice, shouted someone from the crowd. They fought like insects, not warriors. They showed wisdom, called another voice. They defeated our greatest champion. Before Quinthal could speak again, another figure stood up in the royal box. It was Keshtar's second-in-command, a warrior named Drakeman. Everyone knew him as Keshtar's closest friend and training partner. I asked permission to speak, Drakeman said. Quinthal looked surprised, but he nodded. The arena recognizes Drakeman, friend of the fallen champion. Drakeman's voice was deep and sad as he looked down at Keshtar's body. I trained with Keshtar. For 15 years, I watched him win fight after fight, always the same way, always with overwhelming strength, always seeking personal glory. The arena was completely silent now. Everyone wanted to hear what he would say. Today I watched him die, Drakeman continued. And in dying, he taught me something I never understood before. He paused, looking directly at Daiho and Valara. He died because he could not adapt. He died because he cared more about fighting the right way than about winning. Angry voices rose from the crowd, but Drakeman kept speaking. These two fighters showed me what real strength looks like. Not the strength to destroy, but the strength to protect. Not the strength to fight alone, but the strength to trust others. They worked together to overcome an enemy who was stronger than both of them, he pointed at Valara. This female warrior saved 26 innocent lives. She chose mercy over glory. And today, she and her human friend showed that mercy and teamwork can defeat even the greatest individual warrior. More voices joined the argument. The arena was splitting into two sides. The traditional warriors wanted to maintain the old ways. But younger Thekmori, and some older ones too, were beginning to question what honor really meant. Silence. Quinthal's voice boomed across the arena. I will hear from one more witness before we make our judgment. To everyone's surprise, he pointed to the human section of the arena. Li Suben stood up slowly. As the chief medical officer, she had the right to speak about the fighter's condition. The human is badly injured, she said. Her voice was not as loud as the Vekmori voices, but it carried clearly in the quiet arena. Leg is broken in 3 places. He has lost much blood. He needs immediate medical treatment. That is not our concern, said one of the council elders. If he dies from his wounds, that is the will of the gods. But it should be your concern, Subin replied. She was scared, but her voice grew stronger as she spoke. This human risked everything to save your warrior. He had nothing to gain and everything to lose. He did it because he believed it was right. She looked around the arena, meeting the eyes of the Khemri warriors in the crowd. They talk about honor and courage, but what takes more courage? Fighting for personal glory, or risking your life for someone who is not even your own species? What shows more honor? Seeking fame in battle, or protecting the innocent even when everyone calls you a coward? The arena erupted in noise again. But this time, it was different. This time, Daiho could hear voices defending him and Valara. Not many, but some. High Arbiter Quinthal stood up. The crowd fell silent once more. The Council of Elders will now decide, he announced. Guards, take the fighters to the medical center. We will announce our judgment when we are ready. The guards helped Daiho and Valara out of the arena. As they walked through the tunnels beneath the stands, Daiho could hear the crowd still, Arguing above them, in the medical center, Li Subin worked quickly to treat Daeho's injuries. She set his broken leg and gave him medicine for the pain. Valara's wounds were cleaned and bandaged. How do you think they will decide? Daeho asked weakly. I do not know, Valara replied. You have given them much to think about. Hours passed. Outside, they could hear the Council of Elders debating. Sometimes the voices were calm. Sometimes they were very angry. The arguments went on and on. Finally, as the sun began to set, the guards came for them again. They were taken back to the arena, which was still full of the Komori, waiting for the decision. High Arbiter Quinthal stood in the center of the arena floor. His face was tired, and his voice was heavy with the weight of his words. The Council of Elders has reached a decision, he said. It was not easy, but we have debated for hours about the meaning of honor and courage. He looked at Daeho and Valara, who stood together in the center of the arena. By the ancient laws, you have both shown courage in facing our champion. You have shown honor in your willingness to die for your beliefs. Therefore, your lives are spared. Half the crowd cheered. The other half booed and hissed. But Quanthal was not finished. However, he continued, you have also challenged our most sacred traditions. Valara, you are no longer welcome among traditional Dekmori society. You are free, but you are also exiled. Valara nodded. She had expected this. And you, human, Quanthal said, turning to Daeho, your own people have already declared you a traitor. You have no home to return to. The words hit Daeho like a physical blow. He had known this would happen, but hearing it officially made it real. However, Quanthal said, there are some among us who believe you have shown a new kind of honor today, a different way of being strong. These the Mori wish to learn more about your human ways of fighting and thinking. He gestured to one section of the arena where Drakeman sat with several dozen other warriors. If you choose to stay on Kethmer, you will be welcomed by these warriors. Together, you may explore what it means to be honorable in a changing galaxy. Daeho looked at Valara. She looked back at him. Both were wounded. Both were exiles. But both were alive. What do you think? Daeho asked quietly. I think Valara said that we have already changed things more than we know. Maybe we should see how much more we can change. 3 months later, Daeho stood in a new kind of training ground. It was built outside the main city, where traditional and progressive Dekmori could train together. Here warriors learned both old and new ways of fighting. They practiced individual combat, but they also learned teamwork and strategy. Valara had become the head instructor. Her students included both Dekmori warriors and human volunteers who had come to Kethmer to learn about this new way of thinking about honor. Daeho's leg had healed, though he still walked with a slight limp. He spent his days teaching diplomatic skills in human tactics, 2 young Vekmori who wanted to protect rather than just destroy. The news from Earth was not good. The human government still considered him a traitor. His name had been removed from all official records. His family had been told he was dead. But other news was more hopeful. The alliance between humans and Nekmori was stronger than ever. The progressive Vekmori faction was growing, led by warriors who believed that true strength came from protecting others. It's not just defeating enemies. More importantly, the Vexter Empire had noticed the changes. Their spies reported that the Dekmori were becoming more dangerous because they were learning to work together better. Some Vexter commanders were beginning to worry that their enemies were becoming too united. One evening, as Daeho watched, the alien sun set from his small house near the training ground. Li Suben came to visit. She had decided to stay on Kethmer as well, setting up a medical center that treated both humans and the Komori. Do you ever regret it? She asked, sitting beside him on his porch. Daeho thought about the question. He had lost his career, his citizenship, his old life. He would probably never see Earth again. History would remember him as a traitor, but he also thought about the students at the training ground. Young Vekmori, who now believed that protecting the innocent was the highest form of honor. Human volunteers, who had come from across the galaxy to learn and teach. A growing movement that believed cooperation was stronger than competition. No, he said finally. I do not regret it. Above them, the alien stars came out one by one. In the distance, they could hear the sounds of the training ground, where warriors from two different species learned to fight side by side. It was not the life Daiho had planned, but it was a life worth living, and sometimes that was the only victory that mattered.